Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me for this week's edition of In the Pocket, it is longtime NFL quarterback Chase Daniel. Chase, how you doing, man?
What's going on, man? How you doing? Good to
I'm
be back.
doing well. Week 3, we said this on the Sunday night show, and I truly believe it. That slate of games on Sunday and the way that it all unfolded, I feel like the NFL is back now. The first 2 weeks are an acclimation period, just getting used to the rhythms of watching again. But some of the outcomes, some of the storylines, just the league and all the stuff to sink your teeth into, it really does feel like we're back. And we've got some stuff today that I am very excited to talk to you about.
No,
we're going to continue our rookie quarterback spotlight with CJ Stroud, talk about one hell of a game from Justin Herbert, talk about some other more quarterback adjacent stuff, not necessarily performances from last week, but I really wanted to get your insight on some storylines around the league and some dynamics within certain buildings. But I wanted to start with a question that the football internet has been asking really for the last year or so. And I sometimes get worried that we can get a little bit too myopic with the way that we think about this as football media and certain spheres of the football media. So when we met earlier this week, and talked about what we were going to discuss today, this is the first thing that I brought up to you, because last Thursday was the latest entry into the conversation about what Brock Purdy really is. Yeah. This team is second in the NFL in EPA per dropback so far this season. The Niners are. When he was on the field last year after the Christian McCaffrey trade as well, this was arguably the best offense in football. Last week against the Giants, another great stat line, 25 of 37, 310, 2 touchdowns. But obviously, and that's why we're doing this, that doesn't tell the whole story. 67% of those yards came after the catch. Only 54% of his throws traveled 5 yards in the air. Worth noting that he was blitzed at a historic rate. Yeah. But there's a lot to dig into here and a lot to untangle here. So I wanted to have a real conversation with someone who's played the position about what Brock Purdy's production means within this offense.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different layers to it. Thanks for that long-winded intro to what I'm about to talk about. But so the stats you said, 67% of those yards came after the catch, and 54% of his throws travel less than 5 yards in the air. Okay, that's a Shanahan offense. Just bottom line, like week in, week out, that is like sort of like they there was a 3rd and 13 and 3rd and 15 screen that they converted. Like that's the type of thing that Shanahan does, not only with his play calling, his play design, when he calls certain plays, but he has a knack for that. Okay, so that is the offense. But I would say this is almost an argument that I have heard said versus something I really hate. Is it the quarterback or is it the system? Is it the quarterback who's making the plays and the tough throws, or is it the system that's making the player better than he would be without the system? And in a rare occurrence, it's both. It's both for me with Brock Purdy, because I think Brock Purdy, like when I watch him, I watch like a guy who knows exactly what he's doing on every single play. He has an answer in his toolbox for every single coverage. The first drive wasn't great. He put the ball in harm's way a few times, and then he settled in because it was probably not – they probably weren't expecting him to pressure that much, the Giants, but they did. And they made some sideline adjustments, and you saw like the third drive, I think, on through halftime, the 2-minute drill, and then the second half. I thought he played just so well. And it was within the offense. It wasn't like he was out there being Superman. Now, made some Superman throws. The throw going back to Kittle on the sideline where he dropped it over the guy, like falling back. Like that to me was outstanding. That's the quarterback 100%. The touchdown throw in cover 0 where he's drifting back, lofts up a corner route to the end zone. I mean, perfect. Like footwork, perfect timing. You tell they'd been working on it, and it was an impressive performance, but it's always like a little bit of a mystery, right? Like because I used to hate when that would get brought up. Like when I was at Mizzou, we had an amazing system, but I'm like, dude, I'm still the one pulling the trigger. You know what I'm saying? Like don't doubt me. And that was my biggest doubters coming out of college, whereas the NFL like scouts and head coaches like, well, he's really good, puts up a lot of numbers in college, but Can he throw a 20-yard out route to the field on an NFL hash? Like all that stuff. And so I used to get really pissed off because I'd be like, the thing is, you want a quarterback to be able to run your system how you see fit. So this is the perfect example of like the two meshing together.
Obviously, not everyone could do this. We've seen quarterbacks, lesser quarterbacks in this offense, and the stats aren't the same. Jimmy Garoppolo put up fantastic numbers in this offense, very similar to the ones that Brock Purdy are putting up. But when you go a step lower than that, and we've seen the Nick Mullenses of the world and CJ Beathard play in this offense, and while they're elevated, it still doesn't look like this. So that obviously that argument is a non-starter. Not everyone can do this. But I also think that he's not being asked to do so many things that a huge portion of starting level quarterbacks in the NFL could not do well. So my question to you is, where does he elevate what they are trying to do on offense? And does he, in your opinion, elevate what they're trying to do on offense?
I think for the first time in 3 shows, I think you're wrong on that because of what I know and the coaches I've been around that is in that system. And I just think that he absolutely, like, you got to be one smart cat in that offense, man, because there's 3 plays at times called in the huddle and their run game checks, their run game mic IDs, all that stuff's being put on him as a 7th round rookie last year. Now he's been able to grow into it. Obviously missed some time with his elbow and stuff. And now, but I just think he's finally showing and finally taking ownership within the offense. And I think that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants in his quarterback. And I do think like the Nick Mullins, like there was some stat, I think I saw it again, like he threw for like the most yards in like a 10-game span in NFL hit or something. He's like over 350 yards a game or something. And that brings me back to like, okay, well, but also I don't know if he's as smart and as well fit for the offense as Brock Purdy. Because when I watch Brock Purdy, and a lot of people watching the film will miss it and not see it, but just on every, like first of all, they're the closest looking offense to Miami for obvious reasons than anyone because of the shifts and the motions and the motion landmarks and the snap points, like all that stuff. Like people don't realize it's not just like, hey, you're just dropping back and throwing the ball to Deebo Samuel. Like it is very, very mentally taxing. And their play call sheet is long as all get out, like one of the longer play call sheets in the league, the San Francisco 49ers. So I think all of that to me makes me think like this is a very good fit and also a very good feel for how he is expected to play. And he played that way as a rookie, and you're starting to see it game 3 already. Like that wasn't a fluke.
It's the right mix of different traits and different aspects to make this offense hum, right? And there was a play in the first half where Deebo turns a 25-yard completion into a 40-yard completion because he makes 3 guys miss in space. Yeah. He's open by 10 yards on the end breaker there. It's not a difficult throw. Like those are the throws those are available to you within the offense. But you look at some of the other throws. You mentioned the corner route to Kittle. He had a couple others, the touchdown. He had a really nice throw in breaker to Juwan Jennings in the first half where there's like a really good anticipation as he's throwing that ball. But those are the structure of the offense stuff is there. But in this game, you didn't see it as much. But in other games, what he's really brought that other quarterbacks haven't is that there's also some out of structure stuff. He's a little bit more aggressive. He's willing to extend plays. So overall, whatever the recipe is, no matter how you want to try to extricate it and divvy up credit within this entire system, it works. And I think that's the most important thing is that he is running the offense available to him and making the 3, 4, 5 plays that quarterback X, replaceable quarterback X might not be able to make in the same circumstances. And for this team in this moment, that's more than enough.
Well, and I was just so impressed, honestly, just because I hadn't watched a lot of them actual film on the iPad, like actually studying. I've watched a lot of just like game film where I've seen he's just balling, and I haven't really dove in. And I watched the whole game, and I was just, I mean, it's impressive when a guy like that played quarterback in the league can go up to you and watch your tape and just understand like the nuances of the position. And like the first thing I wrote right here was like, he's so smooth. Like he's never in a hurry. He's just seems like he has everything under control. Everyone knows that he has like a bunch, like a little bit of swagger. Everyone that we talk to, like, you got to have that. So the guys love him. But he's also like a servant leader. Like, he's like leading by example. He's wanting to make the team better. Like, he's doing all the right things. It just seems like they got this pick like so right. And it's still early on in his career, but just everything, and especially like that they're going through in the offense and just what they put on him, like, it just seems like the perfect marriage, which is cool. I mean, I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he is the quarterback for the next 10 years there, because he's fun to watch, honestly.
So I wanted to ask you, where are some moments where maybe he keeps his cool, he keeps his composure that other quarterbacks might not be wired to do the same? Like, what are some areas where maybe he has a little bit more poise, just comfort than other quarterbacks might?
Well, the first thing I wrote down, I have like 15 notes on them because I couldn't stop writing. I couldn't stop writing about it because I'm like, this is impressive. The first one I had was stands in the pocket. Like, the dude is just like standing in there, will take a hit. Like, if protection breaks down, you never see him flustered on the sideline. You never see him palms up, is like what you used to call it in the quarterback room. We used to find people in New Orleans like, you give me a palms up on the field, bro. Like, as a quarterback, you're getting fined, bro. Like, you're getting fined in our room. He's never done that. Like, he's just so calm, cool, and collected. So I think it's just an overall feeling. Like, to me, the biggest deal as an NFL quarterback, especially a young guy, because Brock is still very young, is can you stand in the pocket and deliver it, take a hit, get back up, and do it over and over and over, and not one of these like chuck and ducks is like what we used to call it. Like, you're throwing the ball, you're like, I don't want to get hit, because I've been in that situation before, because like these dudes are huge, but like there's just no panic in his eyes or his body language or anything. That to me is what stands out.
What specifically in your mind makes the offense so quarterback friendly? Like, this version of it, because obviously we know what the Shanahan offense is. It's been around for 30 years. There have been so many different iterations of it. But when you watch this current version of the Niners offense, what do you think allows quarterbacks to function so well within it?
Well, you got to, I mean, I said it before, like, you have to be smart, because for you to be smart, that allows the coaching staff and Kyle Shanahan to give you multiple options on multiple different plays. So you're not stuck in a bad play. That to me is like the number one thing about being such a quarterback friendly offense, is like, hey, if it's too high, we're running the ball. If it's single high, we're throwing it. If it's man, you got a chance to check to a man beater, like every single snap. So that to me, like, that's all I can talk about, right? Is like my experience. That is what I wanted. I wanted to never, ever go up to the line, put your hands under center, and think, oh man, this ain't gonna work. Like, this is not a good play. like just a bad feeling. Even if it's a run, you're like, God, it's like almost like you're wasting plays, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I just don't see, like, I don't see that. I don't see that in this offense. And so that's what's cool about as a quarterback and from the whole team, like, hey, we're going to put you in positions to make plays, but you better be smart. You better know how to run the offense. And I mean, just how John Lynch has built that offense, from the offensive line to the receivers to the running backs. I mean, that's a quarterback's like best friend. Like, you get separation, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC. Like, I just keep going. It just is like all these weapons built around it. That also makes it a quarterback friendly offense. You're like, hey, I can just throw a screen to CMC on third and 13 in the red zone. He's going to go get a first down. Like, I don't got to drop back and, hold the ball and move around in the pocket, try to find a completion like that. To me, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just throw it out there and let him go do the work. And he's doing such a great job at that. Honestly, it's impressive.
All right, let's move on to one hell of a performance that we wanted to dig into today. It's our rookie quarterback spotlight of the week, and we're going to talk about CJ Stroud. What a day for CJ Stroud on Sunday against the Jags. 20 of 30, 280, 2 touchdowns. And I don't even think that stat line does justice to the way that he played in the game.
I thought it was more yards and like more, like, I totally agree with you.
And there were so many aspects to that game that stood out to me when I rewatched it. Where do you even want to start? What in your mind was the most impressive thing that you saw him do on Sunday? The most impressive part of that performance?
Just that it's very difficult for rookie quarterbacks to do a lot of things and play fast. And the biggest thing though is getting through progressions. And that's what people in the building have told me too. Like, they are super impressed with how he's able to see a defense and process it in his head and get through his progressions. 1, 2, 3, not open. Like, he made a throw that won't go down. I mean, it's 11-yard completion, but he made a throw where he got through 1 and 2 and the pocket was closing in. And I'm like, and he had to step up, and a lot of guys would just dirt it. He somehow found 3 on the left sideline, just sitting there, and threw it out. And it was 11-yard gain, 2nd and long, first down.
That was the first play that jumped out to me. There's a botched jet motion on that play. So the timing is thrown off.
He snapped it too early.
Yeah, that might be on him. But there are so many things that could have gone wrong on that play. There's a botched jet motion. There's penetration on the right side. He has to slide in the pocket. And not even did he buy himself time, he still tried to read the play out. He still went to number 2 before his check down.
Mm-hmm.
That play was so impressive to me.
Yeah.
And just the willingness to kind of hang in there and go through the entire play, not just panic, but still read out the play, was unbelievably impressive.
But a lot of quarterbacks that is impressive. But what's more impressive about him is a lot of quarterbacks would go through and sit in the pocket and read through progressions, but they wouldn't get through it quickly. So they might get to 1 to 2, and you might try to get to 3, but you might get sacked because time's up, 2.5 seconds, you're done. What's impressive, like, he's able to understand what defenses are doing because he's really smart. Everything I've heard, like, I was literally just texting the OC or the pass game coordinator, like, about him, like, bro, give me something, like, and he's just like, dude, he's so smart. Like, he's so smart, which is like, it's impossible. Like, Wonderlic, whatever. Like, it's hard to tell until you get a guy in the building, get a guy in the offense. And also, like, what stood out to me, which maybe not stood out to you, but like, he's out there. I mean, they have run to run kills in that offense, and that 49er offense with Slowick. Like, to me, I saw a couple times where I'm like, oh, they better not run right. They better not run right. They better run outside zone right. And he's alert. He's alerting it left. There a couple of times, like, that's just, it seems so easy to a team or to a audience that's watching. But like some of these, and I know this because I know the offense, some of these run to run progressions and kills is what we call it, like killing a play to get to another play. A lot of these are like, hey, is this a 3 technique or is this a 2-eye? It's not like, hey, safety down, we're going this way. Some of it is, but a lot of it's like, hey, you need a 3 tech and a 9 tech only to run this trap play. That's the only way to run it. So he's looking at multiple things because it's a very intense offense like that. But he was able to do that, and that to me is like, hey, like, you can trust the guy. Like, he's in his playbook, he's learning it, he's smart. Obviously, he's thrown for like over 900 yards or whatever it is in 3 games. I mean, it's impressive.
The most encouraging part to me is that we always knew he could throw it. I mean, you watch his tape at Ohio State. I mean, he was the most accurate quarterback in the draft. He has a ton of arm talent. His ability to layer throws to the second level was really impressive in college. I think remains impressive, but he was never under pressure in college. It was like 24% of his snaps. He's got 2 starters in the NFL right now as rookies, one of whom is playing very well in Arizona. The other is a 4th-round pick that is played just fine in spot duty in Cleveland. And we didn't know what he would look like when the game got dirtier and when the pocket got muddier and he had to navigate that space. And that was one of the most impressive things he did on Sunday. That play we're talking about with the check down, he has to slide in the pocket. There was another one in the first half where it's play action. He comes off the in-breaker, slides in the pocket to his right, and then with anticipation on time, throws the out to Robert Woods and before he's out of his break. And so the arm talent was obvious always, but his ability to navigate the pocket, especially when that gets crowded, that's already stood out. And I think that was one of the biggest questions people had about him coming out.
Yeah, and that was literally, I have it like bolded and circled in my notes, was tight pocket, tight window throws. And that's the NFL. Like, the NFL is a dirty pocket at all times, and it's the windows that he's throwing to, like, he's fitting some balls in there that maybe some guys are like, it's covered. He's like, no, I'm trusting it. And eventually there's going to be one that pops up and tipped. And he had one that he didn't layer enough over that linebacker that should have got picked off. But dude, it happens. But the one
Even
you're
that
talking
play,
about,
though,
yeah,
even that play that almost got picked off, the reason he throws that is because he knows the linebacker is supposed to take the cheese on the underneath route. Like
and the linebackers made a good play. Yeah,
he understood the structure of the defense, and that's why he made the decision. Even that wasn't that bad.
In the play, it's so funny because I wrote down a bunch of plays, but the play you're talking about where he hits Robert Woods on an out route on the right sideline, and it's like a 20-yard comeback route. I literally texted my guy at Houston and like I videoed this play and I sent it to him as I'm talking, like I'm breaking it down on Twitter or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because they call it like a slim route. It's a 5-step slant off heavy play action in the pistol. And it was straight covered. And usually on the backside, it's either like a dig, a sit, or a comeback. And I'm like, as I'm filming this and talking to him, like, you guys decided to give him a 20-yard comeback. Like, you couldn't get another in breaker. Like, that was your option. And sure enough, like in time, in rhythm, I'm like, dude, he got through that progression so fast. What, like, you guys got a guy. Like, because you know, if NFL guys are sitting in the back and forth, it's like, it's impressive, like super impressive.
The most impressive throw he made in that game, in my opinion, might have been the one that was incomplete to Nico Collins. There was a throw on third down where he was running like a little bender, and he throws it when he can barely see the receiver, and it hits him in the hands. And Nico gets up and he does that. That's on me. Like I should have had that one.
He tried to fit that one in there because it was a weird coverage. It was like what we call like the trips is to the right. Nico's tight split, single receiver, I think, and they're like in 3 buzz where the safety's coming down and the backside. So he's thinking in his mind, CJ Stroud's thinking in his mind, hey, my 3 buzz beater is backside on this little post, little wrap route. But what he didn't, I don't think he saw was like the guy was pressing Nico Collins. And so Nico's like running at a man beater, but CJ's like, no, bro, like you're my single high beater, man beater, or zone beater. Like you got to win. And he threw it. And I was like, whoa, like as like I'm like watching it like wow. And he actually I had to rewind it and he actually fit it in there. And I'm like, oh, all right. And then I saw Nico like it's on me, but like just I mean, processing all that information like I'm telling it to you, he's going through it in about 10 seconds. Like, hey, I see a big hole here, strong side, it's got to be 3 buzz based on film study. I'm going back to my slant route, backside, or my in route, wrap route, whatever. And to actually do that and process it over and over and over again on the road in a tough environment against a division opponent, it was impressive.
There was one last play that really stood out to me, and it's a comparison that I actually made before the draft. And I think that after watching this game, I feel pretty decent about it. He had like an out and up from the pocket and threw a ball to Dalton Schultz at the pylon right before Dalton Schultz even turned around. Yep. And they barely missed it. And his reaction was incredible because he wanted that play so bad and understandable because it would have been an incredible play. But the pocket movement and then even the way that he was moving with the ball, like the way that we had 2 hands on the ball, he looked exactly like Joe Burrow. Like in that moment, he looked exactly like Joe Burrow. And coming out of the draft, when I was watching him, it's like they're both 6'3", incredible accuracy. And when I watched that and I think in our pre-draft podcast, the way that I framed it is his best case scenario is Joe Burrow. Let's say it happens 20% of the time. And when I watched that game on Sunday, those are the vibes that I got. It was very much Joe Burrow vibes. Yeah,
that's good because I definitely see that now that you're talking about. I know the exact play you're talking about. It was a good throw, maybe an inch outside, and Dalton should have caught it. But just how he stepped up and just, I mean, it goes back to like what I said. Like, he's smooth. He's like smooth, and he's not super antsy back there. And honestly, like this early in his career, that's hard to teach. So you think it's going to be that way.
Backup offensive lineman in the game.
Yeah.
Right now.
See, I didn't even know that. Which makes it even more impressive. Yeah. Yeah. That's not good.
How quickly do you know if a guy's a guy? Like when you watch that game in your mind, is it like he just got it, or do we need to see more before you're willing to say something like that?
I need to see more. It's easy for anyone to see a rookie quarterback have success early and say he's got it, but there's been so many guys who have had success and maybe it's like one off and then just like, but I do think like he's he's starting on the right path, man. Like it's such a different story than the other two rookies right now, because Bryce Young has been hurt. Anthony Richardson hopefully coming back this week, concussion, but played well the 1.5 games or whatever he played. But I would say it's too early to tell, and I would say that if Houston was what I've seen, like if Houston was picking one, I think they would have chose CJ Stroud. I mean, I think they're really happy with who they got.
I thought he was the best quarterback. If I was picking number one, he's the guy I would have chosen, because I thought his floor was really high. And now I think we're seeing, again, if he can have that kind of Joe Burrow-like profile to his game.
Man, if he could be Joe Burrow, that's a hell of a pick.
I mean, it is one hell of a pick. The last thing I wanted to say, and this is such a stupid point, but I thought he did such a great job of getting the ball out on screens and against free rushers. The way he was putting touch on some of those throws. Not everyone can do that, and not everyone is calm enough to make those plays in those situations. He made 4 or 5 of those in this game where he's just popping the ball over somebody or throwing it sidearm around somebody. And I was like, it's just a good way of operating. Like every element of who he was in that game was impressive. And
it's a good observation by you, because I don't think it's a dumb point. I'm glad you made it up, because the screen, obviously like the screen throws, like you got to be like, it's either like a dart or a free throw is what you used to said. Like if it's a dart, you're throwing between guys. If it's a free throw, you're throwing over guys. And he had all those throws, like dart or free throw. But what I was most impressed about, and what I was texting my guy in Houston about, was like, I got excited about the 2 plays. I think it was like the second drive or third drive where they ended up throwing a touchdown on the corner route. But he got zeroed the first time in the game down there in the high red zone. And he just calmly caught the snap, free rusher in his face, and just whoop, on a little slant route to the right. Okay, first down. It was like 2nd and 11. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like he had a plan for it. He saw it. He knew what to do. And then they zeroed him again 3 plays later, and he stayed calm and didn't make the best throw, but like it doesn't have to be the best throw if it's caught, right? Like he was like falling back, free rusher in his face, and threw a corner out for a touchdown. And that's what I said. I was like, dude, you guys got back-to-back zeros almost, and then you made them pay, okay? And then they didn't do it again. So that scared him off from doing that. That's a rookie quarterback saying, hey, I can handle the zero. I know what you got. Here's what I got. That was impressive to me.
The last thing I wanted to ask you, the touchdown that he threw to Tank Dell, what are the Jags doing on that play?
No clue.
I was trying to figure out, was it cover 3? Is he supposed to be the post safety, but he's hanging out at the line of scrimmage? And if he is, why didn't he run back right away?
You're saying, so it was down at the 1. It wasn't.
Oh, it was down at the
right?
1 or whatever. Yeah. Down at the 1. The long completion Tank
down. The long completion Tank down. So no, that's another thing. Like the Jaguars completely screwed up their rotation on that play. So you see the left safety with dreads. He's down and he's like, no, he's pointing to the other safety. No, you go back. And he understands. Like he gets it, and he's like, oh no, and he's running back. And they actually have like the perfect play on it where CJ Stroud is literally supposed to come off play action. It's heavy play action. It's a 2-man route. It's a deep over in a post. Everyone in the league runs it. It's not hard, but it's very successful. And your eyes off that fake, when you're faking, you're supposed to come up and you're supposed to locate the free safety in single high coverage. Okay, so when you locate the free safety in single high coverage, you need to make a really quick judgment. Is the free safety driving the over route, or is he staying back? If he's staying back, I'm throwing the over. If he's driving the over, I'm letting the post launch. And so he comes out the fake and he's like, oh my God.
Where's the free safety?
There's no one there. Yeah. And so he's like, I'm launching this. And then it ends up being like an amazing throw because the corner actually drop kicked is what we call it. And the safety somehow was on the ball and almost made the play. But he saw it and he made him pay. And that's something that to me was cool to see, because if I've been on those a couple times where the defense is like so screwed up and you just sort of freak out and you're just like, oh, check down. When in reality, just like let it play out and just launch Ola. And that's what he did. It was cool.
It was funny because I think he noticed it before the play, and it seemed like he was trying to get to the top of his drop as fast as possible in order to just get it and let it rip, which was very funny to watch. But that little bit of recognition, I think, again, speaks to how locked in he was over the course of that game.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about arguably the best quarterback performance of the weekend, and that is a guy that you know very well in Justin Herbert.
Jeez.
Some of the numbers from that game were staggering when I went back and looked at them. So he was blitzed on about 82% of his dropbacks, which was the most in a game since 2016. Two of them, the two heaviest blitz games in the next gen stats era, happened last week. One to Brock Purdy, one to Justin Herbert.
That's wild.
He was in the shotgun in this game 92% of the time, which is the highest rate he's ever had in a single game in his career.
Yeah.
And they ran the ball 15 times, which is the third lowest total in a Chargers game since he became the quarterback. It is difficult, and I said this earlier today, to more decidedly put the game in your quarterback's hands with a game plan and a method of offense than what the Chargers did with Justin Herbert on Sunday. And he was very game.
Oh my God. We still text back and forth. Like, he's my boy. And I told him, I sent him, I'll read you the text I sent him this is on Tuesday. Okay. I said, I just watched the Philly game versus Minnesota because I know he was watching it that day because that's the day they watch. If you guys block their zero, you're going to have a career day. It's only bringing 5 and 6 guys. And he didn't respond because he was obviously like doing it and he gets tons of texts. And I'm not going to say what he said back on Sunday after he responded, but I'll end with, he said, I've never seen so much zero before. That's what he ended with. I'm not going to say the rest. And I was watching the game too, because I was like, the Minnesota Philly, I'm like, what is Minnesota doing? Like it works, but Philly gashed them for 2 huge post routes to Devonta Smith. And when they got off the bus, and I'm like, I mean, that's literally that's where my head went. So you got to see the inner workings right there of a quarterback to quarterback. Like, bro, if they blitz, you guys are going to have it planned out. And their plan was simple yet effective. Their plan was, hey, Justin Herbert, you're winning us the game. We're not going to run the ball. We're going to put you in shotgun because all this under center stuff when they're in AA mugs and these linebacker mugs, it doesn't make sense. So I get why they did it. It's not going to be something they do all the time. They were 100% ready for it. And that's what makes it even more impressive because you can practice these things, but he had like 5 or 6 different tools in this toolbox that Kellen Moore gave him versus zero. And that's why they said, hey, we're going to go out and throw it 47 times. You're going to complete 40 of them, by the way, which is 85, which is like what? Like 40 completions in an NFL game. And we're going to lean on you. And there's been a few times where Staley has just came into the quarterback room, maybe on like a Thursday or maybe even like Friday while we're in there just getting our stuff together. And it's like, hey, bro, look, here's the deal. We're going to let you win the game for us. And you're going to throw it 50 times. And there's been times that that's happened. I guarantee you that's what he said to Kellen Moore was like, bro, go win it with let Justin win it. Let our receivers win it. And they had such good answers. Like, it was so simple. You had to like just a bubble throw or just a little flat route or these motion bubble, like just stuff like that. And they just kept bringing it. And they finally hit him with a big play before the end of half, which was insane in cover zero. He just kept floating back, threw it down the left sideline to Josh Palmer. And just like, first of all, Josh Palmer, like, stay in bounds, bro. Like, stay in bounds. That was a dime. You're wasting his throws. But like that stuff, that's when you make them pay. And they just kept doing it. And sometimes you can get a little bit freaked out or not scared. Scared's not the right word. Like just overwhelmed with like, man, they're doing it again. Here you go. Like, what are we going to keep running these same plays? And are they going to, and they just kept doing it and kept gashing them.
Those bubbles that they were running with those motions, how many of those are RPOs where he's deciding to throw the ball? None of them?
I mean, I think that I saw 2 or 3 out of the 8 or 9 they threw, which were RPOs. And I guarantee they were just like, dude, just throw it out there because they got loaded box and it just messes up the blocking scheme. But a lot of them were like, hey, here's our check for a zero. We see it. Let's go. And I just thought they operated because games I've been around like that. Coincidentally, Minnesota, when Mike Zimmer was the D coordinator, they were 8 up, AA mug, double edge press. It was just like, it was a bitch to go against. Like, it was like, man, like just so much mental stamina went into the week, and he's going to bring it 3 times. And the whole week you're thinking like how to do it. So I've seen teams like in quarterbacks and specifically quarterbacks get bogged down by all the zero that, man, they had a good plan and they played fast. And that's what was most impressive to me about this performance.
Is there any way to kind of discern what is different about the offense from a game like that? Or is the defensive game plan so hyper specific that this is not a good example for maybe how the offense has changed from last year?
I don't know if this is a great example, but I mean, I've watched all their games, and I think the offense, like I know what you're getting at, and I think the offense has changed. I feel like they've kept 40 to 50% of the route concepts, and they've added 40 to 50% new route concepts. So it's a really good, and everything I've heard within the building, they've simplified it to let them play fast. And boy, is it working. Because I think you put in these notes, I think they're third in like every major offensive efficiency metric category, which is absurd because they're just playing so fast. It's not like it's like all this brand new offense and stuff. It's just the way it's being coached, if I'm being really honest, and the way that Justin is feeling about this offense and how confident, like I can tell, like you watched the film after the touchdown throw to Parham on 4th and 1. It was after they didn't score on the Josh Palmer. Like, first of all, like when every single day for 2 years, when we warm up, I'd be playing catch with Justin. And if we didn't have someone catching, I would be the one catching it. Okay. And this would be like 20 yards away. And for everyone out there, like, I know it's been said, but like he throws such a heavy ball. And what does a heavy ball mean? Like, it just is like, thunk. Like, it's like the ball just feels like it's coming in at such a different velocity. And we used to call it, like, no joke, like we used to call it the Herbert cross. So on the end, I've talked about this before, on the end of an NFL ball, it looks like a cross. It's very small. And sometimes if you're catching it and you're not hand catching it, some of these receivers on the inside of would have a Herbert cross because they'd get to him and he'd throw such a tight spiral and it would just indent and leave. Like we used to joke around and call it Herbert cross. Like that's how, so that Parham one, like you saw after how, first of all, he threw it 1,000 miles an hour, but you saw how excited
he was.
Justin
so pumped. He was so pumped.
He used to show emotion, but he used to not be like, the dude is he's changed to a way to where he's just like, and everything I've heard is just like such more like vocal leader, like not afraid what anyone thinks. I don't really care. I'm going to be myself. He's comfortable in his skin. He's comfortable how he leads. He's going to make a ton of money. And that's sort of what I've seen with him. It's been really impressive, honestly.
And this, again, from some of the outside looking in and just everything I'd heard about his personality is that he wants to do the right thing. He wanted to do the right thing in that previous offense. And a lot of the time that involves getting to a check down pretty quickly and making the right read. Him playing a little bit freer, a little bit looser. I was very excited about that. And you've already seen the benefits of it. So last year they had 55 plays. You guys had 55 plays of 20 plus yards, which is middle of the road in the NFL.
Yeah.
This year, 55 completions of 20 plus yards was middle of the road in the NFL with this guy who's leaving dents in human beings with the way he throws the ball. This year already, they have 16 completions of 20 plus yards. They had 55 all of last season. That's the second highest total in the NFL. Yeah. And so that version of the offense, when it's not like they're going bombs away every single time they go out there, but taking the mindset to, I'm going to take these whenever they're possible, and I'm going to be looking for them at every opportunity. That version of this team is fun as hell to watch, and that's what we've gotten so far.
I mean, I had so much fun. Like I watch, and I've said this before, but when I'm watching NFL on Sundays, I have the NFL Sunday ticket, like I'm sure a lot of people do, and I have a TV with like the quad box and another TV like outside in the patio with the quad box. So I have 8 games out of the 9, usually early games going on. And because I've just know so much and know so many people and have such good relationships with people at the Chargers, that's the game that I'm normally watching. And the sound's always on, and just to see like how they've been playing and how well they're doing, like you could just like, I just really hope that this defense doesn't screw it up for them, because this offense deserves like a really, really good defense. And I just don't know. I just don't know if that's the case. And the other thing that I was going to mention is like, so we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins next. Okay. I'm just going to spill the beans, but I watched it in order. So I watched Justin play. I'm like, man, like I was on the edge of my seat, even though I saw it with the sound and knew exactly what plays were going on. And I go and I watch Kirk. I'm like, oh yeah, he's good. And like, it's just not as exciting of an offense. Really, all like CJ or Brock Purdy. And I was just like, that to me tells me that he's having fun, Justin is, and that he's playing at a really, really high level right now.
The one last thing I wanted to ask you about him is that obviously the physical traits are undeniable. We know all about them. He's unbelievably gifted. But working with him every day, being in the quarterback room with him every day, what to you sticks out about the way he sees and processes the game when you're actually watching tape game planning with him?
He's extremely smart. Like an introvert, everyone knows that. But when he's around guys that he trusts, like the quarterback room, like, you'll hear a joke that may not be super funny, but you'll laugh because it's like, oh, you told a joke, man. You told a joke. And yeah, it's cool. Like we had such a good relationship. Like, and I've told this story before, but it's been a couple years. Like when I first signed, I think I was going into my 13th year, and he was going into his second, I think, or third, whatever. Yeah, no, he's going his second year when I signed. And so
year 2, yeah.
And he just won Offensive Rookie of the Year and played at such an insanely high level, like probably one of the best, if not the best rookie years we've ever seen in the history of the game, numbers wise. And the first thing he says is like, bro, like I'm a huge fan, like just of your game and how you've stuck around, and like what, like just wants to be coached. Like, what do you got? Like, let's do this together. Like, so that sort of gives you a dive into like, hey, this guy just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's coming to me, some career backup. Like, hey, like I just want to get better. Like, what do you see and help me? Like, what are we doing? Like, so that just gives you a little bit of like an insight to like how he is in the meeting room, and just a good dude. Like I say this all the time, and he hates it, but I'm like, this is the dude you want like your daughter to bring home to, like if you were a dad, like it's just is like, yeah, like true all-American dude, a little introverted, but like funny, but not really, but also like loyal and honest.
Justin Herbert's just getting crushed right now for his lack of sense of humor.
Yeah, but the thing is, like he is like it's all fun and games. I'm sure he'll see the episode and text me like, "You just crushing me, man. What are you doing?" But he's such a good dude. Like he's honestly like top 5 favorite teammates of all time for me.
The last thing I wanted to ask you, and we're spending a lot of time on this, but you have such a perspective on it. I think it's useful. I remember talking to you before that first season that you had with the Chargers and about the offense that they were putting in for Justin. You probably don't even remember this. We talked during camp, and you were talking about just the dynamics within that offense. And in New Orleans, they have this thing called the dot meeting where you go through all the options the night before the game, and the quarterback gets to really put his stamp on what the game plan is. He's like, I like this or I don't like this. Yeah. And the plays the quarterback likes typically are the ones the game plans are composed of. And you were talking about trying to get Justin to a place or, working on this element of him speaking up and making his preferences and opinions known within the room. Do you think he ever got to that place in the 2 years that you guys spent together?
Yeah, he did. He did toward the end of the middle of the second year. I just think that he's just so used to, he's had so many different coordinators. I think he was so used to just like, hey, coach, just call it. Like, and he still is that way. Like, bro, just call it. Like, I'll make it work. And that to me is really cool because like you want someone to like, and there's certain plays that he'll start, be like, I really like this one. But he's never really ever said like, oh, I don't like this one. I don't want to run this one because I don't feel comfortable. Like he just comes from the tree of like, hey, just call it. Like I'll let it rip. Like no matter what it is, I don't really care what it is. And to me, that's like, oh, okay, cool. That like gives you confidence as an offensive coordinator.
All right, you already spoiled this, but let's get to it. We're going to talk about Kirk Cousins and beyond. We're digging into specific games for a lot of these guys, but I wanted to take this Kirk Cousins conversation a little bit wider. He's at a fascinating point in his career. He's 35 years old. He's set to hit free agency this spring. He's thrown for 1,000 again. He's thrown. The only person who has done a better job in the business of football world than you is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah,
I think. I think
he's
over
got
the
all
last 2
guaranteed.
decades,
He's got all
he's done
guaranteed
pretty well for
contracts,
himself. He's thrown for 1,000 yards in the last 3 games. The Vikings right now are second in the NFL in explosive play rate.
Really?
At this rate, yeah. Their offense has been
that.
uneven. They've turned the ball over a lot. Their running game has been awful, but they've created explosive plays in the passing game. At this rate, he is going to be an attractive potential option for a team that needs a short-term answer at quarterback. But I want to know what happens for the rest of this season. And this is a hypothetical I thought was interesting that we could dig into. If you're the Jets, would you make a call about Kirk Cousins right now? And if you're Kirk Cousins with his no trade clause, what would you say if the Jets asked you to come play for them for the rest of this year?
I would say absolutely. If I'm the Jets, I want to trade for Kirk Cousins. There's no doubt, bro. Like it's layers. So I'll pull it back. So I say yes, absolutely for the Jets, and for a couple reasons, because the Jets have gone all in. Everything you could possibly do to go all in for a season, they did. They brought Rodgers in. Obviously, everyone knows what happened with him. They brought all that offense in. Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall's back. That defense is top 5, top 10 in the league right now. It's like, I mean, when you trade for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it's win now. It's win now, or maybe next year. Like, there's no like, hey, here's like a 3 or 4 year plan, because he doesn't have it. Okay, Zach Wilson is not the question. Or is not the answer, I think. I know. He's not the answer. And then so it leaves you like, who are you going to bring out on the street? Like my other show, I was like, well, Joe Flacco makes a lot of sense. Like, at least he can like somewhat run the offense. And then I get to thinking, I'm like, well, why not Kirk Cousins? Like, it could be a win-win for him. And here's why. If you waive your no trade clause and you go to the Jets and you end up having a deep playoff run, because I think, correct me, he only has 1 playoff win against New Orleans.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. Yeah.
And if he can go in and double that up even, or make 3 win, like if the Jets go on a run, they're a quarter. I mean, let's just be real. Like, they're a quarterback away from going on a run. And so if you can do that, and then Kirk comes in, and you're leasing him for 1 year. You don't have to pay him next year. Aaron's guaranteed 40. You don't have to pay him. He can be on his merry way, but it's a win-win for both. You can almost, other than Justin Jefferson, the overall feel of the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets are better. Run game way better. I think it's overall better. I
have contention with that.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Jets' offensive line is all over the place.
I said playmakers.
Okay, but I'm just saying the Jets' offensive line is all over the place.
I would agree with that.
And the playmakers overall in Minnesota, Jordan Addison's been pretty good in his first 3 games. TJ Hawkinson's been really good for them since they traded for TJ Hawkinson, and they have Justin Jefferson. So you have a passing game that I think has been pretty kind to Kirk Cousins over the last 2 years.
No doubt.
Even if the interior of the offensive line is a mess in Minnesota, which it is, you have 2 very good tackles, or at least above average tackles. And you have a system he knows and a set of playmakers that I think he's become very comfortable with. So if you're Kirk Cousins, there's a really good chance you throw for 5,000 yards this year, like right in that range with how bad your defense is going to be. Is that better? You coming off a 5,000 yard season where you were really efficient, you played well, rather than you go into the Jets where you don't know the system, you don't know the coordinator, they're still trying to figure out what they want to be. Your offensive line is bad, and you got Garrett Wilson and maybe a couple other guys in a slightly better running game.
I would say, right now, it's so funny you brought that up, 5,000 yards. He's on pace right now to throw for 6,021 yards, which is, it's not going to happen. But I saw a tweet that I was like, somehow I got to work that in, because that's absurd. And like 51 touchdowns. So he's having a hell of a year. He's thrown for almost 1,000 yards in 3 games. I mean, like you said, the Vikings are second explosive play rate. But I don't know. It's interesting to me. And it's only, and I say all this as hypothetical. The only way it makes any type of sense is 3 or 4 games from now. What's the Jets' record? Are they 1-5 or are they 3-3 somehow? then you have a shot come trade deadline to be like, hey, we are about 500 or a game below 500. You look at the playoff race, be like, okay, it makes sense. And then the Minnesota would have to be like completely out of it for it to make sense. Will it happen? Probably not. But I sort of love the idea of it. Like I love the idea of like the Jets leasing Kirk Cousins to come in. You got to learn the offense. Okay, I get that. But we've seen people do it before and play well, have 3 or 4 games in, go with it and play. I mean, but the thing is, like, I don't know if he'd waive the trade clause.
That's my question. Because
tricky part.
If you're sitting here right now and you're Kirk Cousins and you continue on this train that you're on here over the next 14 games, there's probably a team out there that's going to give you $30 million a year to play quarterback
more than
for them
that
next year.
More than that.
He's 35.
So Brady played till he's 42.
Do you think he gets the Derek Carr contract if he hits free agency?
I would think I would think something like 3-year, $140 million. Like that's what I think it is, because he's 35, but you can give him 3 more good years of ball. In quarterback play in this league, not good.
He is a good player, and I'm not disagreeing with you. He does have a very good agent. So Derek Carr is 32, and he got 4 for $150 this offseason from the Saints. Kirk Cousins is 35.
Kirk Cousins is a way better quarterback than Derek Carr.
That's totally fair. So you think that's on the table? Like a $40 million a year extension is on the table for Kirk Cousins if he hits free agency.
Have you seen his contracts that he's had?
So if this is the case,
all guaranteed.
If this is the case, then why would you ever potentially screw that up by going to the Jets and potentially playing poorly or getting hurt, whatever?
Because if I'm a quarterback and I'm not going to make the playoffs, say the Vikings are 2-6 or something, come trade it, like, and they're out of it. I don't want to be a lame duck in that building. Like, I know I'm not. Like, it's just like, what is there for me here? Like, that's that. I'm just saying, like, what is there?
Potentially a lot of money at the end of the road.
Yeah, if you continue to play well and you're having all these yards through 8 games, you're going to get paid regardless, bro. It's 9 more games isn't going to make a case.
That's fair.
I just think I want him to go be like Broadway Kirk. Like, I just want to see him on Broadway, like with the dude. Could you imagine? Like, just take your mind there for a second. Like, could you imagine Kirk Cousins coming out for the first game for the New York Jets, iced out all around his neck? They're screaming Jets, Jets. He throws for 350, 3 touchdowns, and they win. Could you imagine the Jets fans and what they would be like on like cloud 9 or whatever? They're like, I just imagine that whole thing. That's what I want to see.
I'm just imagining him in his LL Bean polo that his wife picked out heading to the press conference in New York. That's the first place that my mind goes.
Oh my God.
I don't know, man. That guy seems to have a very nice life up there in Minnesota. They got that outdoor fire pit.
There's awesome.
A lot of stuff that I think would probably keep me in that beautiful home in that really nice place. Yeah. But that's why I'm not an NFL quarterback, because I'm not wired like these guys are. Last thing I wanted to hit on, again, just like dynamic stuff that you have a sense of that I certainly do not. It seems to me like Davante Adams is getting kind of frustrated with what is happening in Las Vegas, and understandably so. He had a concussion in week 2. Jimmy threw like 4 more hospital balls overall against the Steelers last week. He's getting rung up like 3 times a game. And you could hear it in the locker room after the game. There's just a growing sense of frustration. I think the phrase that he used was, I don't have a lot of time to wait around at this stage of my career. When you have a player like that, a receiver specifically, that you can kind of sense there's a growing sense of discontent, how do you as a quarterback, or how do you as a staff manage that relationship between quarterback and playmaker when things start to devolve a little bit?
It's so tricky. It's so tricky because these are grown men. Like, they're grown men with a lot of different interests and families and likes and dislikes and just everyone in the NFL. And so that's what's so difficult. And that's usually what the best teams have, is they have this camaraderie, they have this closeness, they have this, and it's hard to do because everyone has families, right? Like in college, you're with your boys all the time. It's college ball and it's school. and you're with them. You're probably in a bunch of the same classes. So you're with them 24/7. Here in the NFL, a lot
hanging
of
out at Willie's on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, Willie's on a Wednesday night, like penny pitchers or whenever that was. Like it was. Yeah. I mean, that just took me back. You just totally lost my train of thought. That's funny. But I think it is tricky because it's a situation where, like I said, they're grown men. And sometimes these grown men really just want to win and want to get paid. And that's all. And I'm not saying Davante Adams is like that because, dude, I get it, man. Like, I think Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy G. Jimmy G wins, and I think they're still trying to figure each other out. I think he's still trying to figure out the head coach. I think there's so many different dynamics of the Patriot way that maybe he doesn't like. Maybe gets called out in team meetings like Matt Patricia used to do all the time in Detroit. That was my thing with him is like, hey, like, why are you calling? Like, so there's so many different dynamics that we don't know. And I think it's probably just at the end of the day, frustration leaking over into the media to maybe get him some attention, to maybe say, hey, you know what? You're right, man. Like, you're right. Like, hospital balls, like 4 of them, like just not getting you the ball. They're not winning. Like, all that stuff is frustrating and it just tells me that he's really competitive and he wants to win.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like there needed to be a conversation between the quarterback and a receiver, between the coaching staff and receiver? Not that things have gotten super bad, but just like, we should take care of this before it actually turns into a problem.
I mean, luckily, like truly, I've never been a part of something like that. I've been a part of teams that just really try to keep it private, and the only time, and this isn't really a time, the only time I had any experience with something like that was Michael Thomas in New Orleans when I went there in 2017. The dude is a dog and like wanted the ball every single snap. And it almost got to a point where it was almost negative, but you could also see it shining through. Like, this dude is a dog. Like, and when we get on the ball, like, he does amazing things. So it was more of a competitive juices, and we never had to sit him down. But it's just like, hey, bro, like, if I was, because I would take all the reps in New Orleans on Wednesdays in 2017 because Drew would take bet days. And if I didn't throw him the ball, or more importantly, if I like threw a bad ball, which was probably the case more than he liked, and it wasn't a Drew Brees ball, like, he'd get pissed off. And I'd be like, dude, I got you. Like, don't, it's okay. It's all right. But I think that was coming from like truly like, I want the ball because I think I'm the best, because he was the best at that. It was like, so other than that, no other times I can remember.
I want to be very clear about this. I don't think Davante Adams is like some diva-ish receiver.
No,
I think Davante Adams is a quintessential pro. He is a very smart guy. He's been in the league for a very long time. He's got a lot of skins on the wall. I can just understand if you're Davante Adams, you leave Green Bay, you leave that situation to go play with your college quarterback. It's like, all right, this is great. Like, this is a new start for me. He had a fantastic year last year. They cut the guy you went to go play with. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo. So now you're in this bad situation that you chose for very different reasons. And you're in an offense that, even if they're throwing you the ball 20 times, is not putting you in the best possible position. And you want to be a pro, and he is the ultimate pro. But you can kind of sense that this just isn't what he signed up for. And I can understand where that's a little bit frustrating when you are a player at Davante Adams' level.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you hit it right on. Like, when you're a player at his level, an all pro, that is like a true game changer, when it's not coming true for you on the field and it's not happening on the field, it can get really frustrating for sure.
All right. That's all we got. That was fun. You're right. Those were topics that were worth digging into.
I told you.
It was a good day.
It was good.
As always, guys, sincerely appreciate you listening. Please check out all the other stuff we have on the channel. If you've not listened to this week's episode of the Rossini Report with me and Diana Rossini, we talked about the Bengals' decision about Joe Burrow, the Zach Wilson future of the Jets, a lot of stuff to go check out and listen to. Prospects to Pros with Nate and Dane is on the feed this week. Please go check that out. That has already run. And please come back and check out our week 4 preview that will be on the podcast feed on Friday. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.